With conflicts popping up around the globe, violent conflicts are what I'm talking about, potential wars or wars already, how does that actually affect interest rates? Something that a lot of folks have really just been wondering since we've recently had the Israeli conflict occur just a few weeks ago. And prior to that, over the last year and some change, we've been dealing with the Ukrainian conflict. How does that impact interest rates? War has a really interesting impact on interest rates. And that's that the moment that it occurs, what we typically see here in the United States with our mortgage interest rates is that we see them go down in the initial short term. And why is that? Well, if you think about it, when the world goes into some type of conflict, there starts to be a lot of uncertainty, and folks are just scared of what to do with their money. And one place that the world has seen the most safety with currencies for the past over 100 years is in the United States dollar and just in the United States economy as a whole. So what happens is when war breaks out, a lot of folks assume that there will be what's called flight to safety, meaning that countries will start taking their money out of even their own countries and putting them into something safe. And the safest thing that's traditionally seen is the United States Treasury. So that means that they'll buy Treasury bills, Treasury notes, and buy those up in bulk. And what that ultimately does is has the impact of driving down Treasury yields. Now, going back to some other videos that I've put out there for us, the Treasury yield, typically the 10-year Treasury yield specifically, really dances closely with mortgage interest rates. We've been seeing it for decades. When 10-year Treasury yield goes up, mortgage interest rates will typically drift up with it. Essentially, think of it this way, investors kind of use that 10-year Treasury to hedge against mortgage rates. And what you'll usually see is the Treasury yield, mortgage rates will be just a little higher than the Treasury yield. Historically, around 1 to 1.5% or so. Recently, though, with all the uncertainty we've had, that spread has been as high as 3 and even close to 3.5% from where the Treasury yield is. But the point being, when Treasury yield goes up, you'll typically see mortgage rates go up. Now, when there's conflict, all the countries in the world, people will try to buy U.S. Treasuries, and what that does is actually drives down the Treasury rate. Why? Because there's a lot of demand for them. And because there's so much demand for them, the U.S. doesn't have to offer as high of a rate because there's so many folks wanting to buy it, they can get away with issuing lower yield Treasury rates. So the thought is that we'll drive down Treasury rates, then also theoretically driving down mortgage interest rates. And that is what we see. Here's the thing though, if I mentioned earlier, if you heard it, I said short term. So when there's a conflict, you'll often see the Treasury yields drop significantly even. They might drop a pretty large percentage for a day, a few days, even maybe a week. And with that, you'll see mortgage rates pull down. However, that's only the short term. Wars really create a lot of volatility and uncertainty, meaning that even though we might see that initial spike downward, it's going to go all over the place. And that's really what we've seen since Ukraine. And over the last few weeks, since the Israeli conflict has really started to break out, we've seen a lot of uncertainty. Now, we obviously have so many other issues with uncertainty just in the U.S. economy, with everything from the election cycles to inflation, how we're handling different price increases, all that good stuff. But the war is really throwing another spice of uncertainty. But overall, in the short term, conflict generally will drive mortgage rates down slightly, but in the long term, it creates a lot more uncertainty, so it's more unpredictable on where mortgage rates will ultimately be. So when we think it might be good to have such conflict, just like a lot of people right now are cheering for bad jobs reports and stuff so that they can see interest rates go down, I always argue, hey, don't put short-term gain over long-term sustainability. Because in the long term, it's better that we don't have conflict. Number one, people get to live. I was in the military. We don't like to see war and conflict. It's really not a good thing. But then also it's just better for the longevity of being able to protect and grow. So hopefully this helps explain to you exactly how conflict and wars affect mortgage interest rates. My name's Evan Kaufman. Take care.